Alright guys, welcome to TLC Lane and welcome back to this course, the complete introduction to Photoshop. My name is Alexander Ore, and today we'll be looking at selections in Photoshop. So let's dive in. As we do, come to File, New, let's create a new Photoshop project. And okay, let's stick with this square shaped. Now, you know what, let's go with letter as we often do. Okay, alright, there we go. So we have selection tools here. These are called the Marquee tools. There are several selection tools and several ways we can make selections in Photoshop, and there's even this dedicated select menu. I'm going to come back to this later, and we're going to go through all of these, all of the different ways we can do or we can make selections in Photoshop, and also talk about this selection menu, and that's it. So yes, we have these tools: the marquee tool, rectangular marquee, elliptical marquee, and we have the single row marquee and the single column marquee. We're going to dwell more on rectangular marquee and elliptical marquee. Also, we have this selection tool here, the lasso tools, lasso tool, polygonal lasso tool, and magnetic lasso tool. Also here we're going to dwell more on lasso and polygonal lasso. And then lastly, we're going to come to this quick selection tool, object selection, quick selection, and magic one. Also, and then afterwards, we're going to show how we use the pen tool in making selections, and then how we can make selection from an existing object or image. Okay, so let's bring in an image, and let's use that to walk through this. So I'm going to place linked. Okay, how about this image right here? Let's do that. Okay, so maybe fill the screen, and that I will use that to explain some later, so it's important. Let's fill the screen that way. Okay, so there are several ways we can make selections. Look, let's start with the marquee tools. If I'm using a rectangular marquee tool to make a selection, let's just show. I wanted to select a passport area. Of course, for a proper passport, we won't have this end around the hair and all that. But let's just say for now I wanted to select a passport from this image. Then I can quickly draw a rectangle around the face and near a shoulder, and now I have made the selection. How do I get the selection out of the overall image or the image itself? There are a few ways I can do that. I can hit Ctrl plus the J button on my keyboard, which will do this. Let's go to layer, we'll go layer, new layer, layer via copy, and that's what the Ctrl J is doing. So let's do that right now. So I can hide this, and you see we have that selection, we have that cutout, which if the hand is not with the face and she was looking up more, was looking at the eyes and all that, this will form a good passport. And from there, what we can do next is come to object, trim, and leave everything as it is and say okay, and we have a passport. But that's not what we're not going to do that right now. So that's one way to use the marquee, rectangular marquee tool. And in any objects you have, or any whatever you're trying to make a selection from, that's what a rectangular marquee tool is going to do for you. Of course, you can make that selection and maybe fill it with a color, but we'll get to that later. the elliptical marquee tool will do something similar, and I could draw a perfect square by perfect circle by holding shift on my keyboard, and without pressing anything else I can move this. You see, I can move the selection around, so I'm going to move the selection to just position somewhere better, and again Ctrl J, and I can select that out, and see we have that selection of a face again. Next, let's check the other ones, which I don't do much with anyway. And then let's put another one here. You know what, I don't work with this that much, so for now I'm just going to move on from that. Okay, so now let's look at the lasso tools. That was the marquee tools, and that's the way to use the marquee tools. That's the way you're going to be using the marquee tools a lot, except when you need to fill with a color. And I think I should just discuss that quickly before I move on. So let me hide all of this, and I could come here and create. I'm gonna have to add a layer, so let me just do that quickly. So yeah, I could create a new layer, draw a rectangle, and let me just fill something close to my brown colors here. That's not what they are, but that's a close representation of it, I think. Okay, good. So I could fill this selection here with any of these colors, with this foreground color, background color, and I can do that in two ways. To fill with the foreground color, I'm going to hold Alt on my keyboard. If you're on a Mac environment, then that's going to be option for you. So I'm going to go hold Alt and press backspace, and that's going to fill that for me. Now let me undo that. While I still have the selection, I can hold Control backspace to fill with that yellow down there, which is the background color in Photoshop. Now quickly, let me show us how to deselect a selection before I move on to the next one. Now we still have this selection, this thing around it. The way to deselect it is to come to select, deselect, or undo that, just hit Ctrl plus D on your keyboard. On the Mac environment, that's going to be Command plus D. So that's the way to remove a selection. Now we can do the same thing with an elliptical marquee too. Now I'm just going to create a real ellipse this time around and not a circle, and put that on a different layer. Of course I could put it on the same layer, but I want to put that on a different layer and fill that with blue. To fill with blue, now I'm going to show the second way we can fill a selection with a color of especially with a foreground color. More importantly, now I come here to this tool here, hold it down and select that paint bucket. Of course the shortcut to it is G. If I hold Shift G, and you can do this on any of the tools here that has more than one tool in it. So by holding Shift and tapping the shortcut, you can scrub through them. So if I hold Shift and I press G again, I'm going to go to that. I'm going to get to this one, the 3D material drop. Hold Shift, press G again, I'm going to get to this gradient. I'm not doing that one right now. Hold Shift G. I just need the paint bucket too for now, and I'm going to fill this circle with this foreground color. All I have to do is tap that, and there we go. So now we now have a way to create an object, to create a selection and also fill it in Photoshop. So it's as straightforward as that. We've also learned so far how to deselect a selection. So let's move on to other tools that we can use to create selections. Let me go back to this picture. Now the lasso tools, let's learn the first one, the quick lasso tool. This one is a freehand drawing of a selection. You basically freehand draw it and create a selection in the process. So there we go. I'm just gonna get rid of that. So I'm just gonna freehand draw this one, and I'm gonna move on this just like so, and come here to face. I think I'm just gonna stick with a face for this one. It's not perfect, so it's fine. This is for educational purpose. Alright, so I'm just gonna freehand draw it like that. Don't bother about it if the first time you do it, it's not even nearly as good as mine. It's fine. It's the first time. No one gets things perfectly the first time. Not everyone does that. So I can do that Control J or Command J again, and I get that that's not perfect at all, but that's the way to use the lasso tool. And you can do that too on a layer. Just draw an organic shape, so long as you go back to the beginning, which is the important thing there. And then you can fill that with a color, background color. I got a yellow there. Good. So that's that. The next one is this Polygonal Lasso tool. This one draws lines. Basically, you can only draw straight lines. Hold on. Yeah, I think. Let me just complete that selection there. Deselect it with Ctrl D and then try again. So for a shape as organic as this, girl's features, her hair and everything, this is definitely not the best tool I could have used to try and make a selection of a face. I'm just trying to show us that Polygonal Lasso tool can only draw straight lines. And if you're crazy enough to want to use Polygonal Lasso tool to do this, then this is one way you can do it, by going short and creating short straight lines. And that's what I'm demonstrating, and that's why I'm using this. That's why I'm doing this at all. So, and when you really look at it, maybe I'll provide this picture. I got this picture with a free license from, I think, Pexel now. So I'll probably provide this picture in the resource file, so we can do that. This picture is a fairly interesting one to do. It's not difficult to trace. You can see, even though that's not perfect, but it's not horrible either. So again, let's test out how we can use the Polygonal Lasso tool on a layer. So I can go ahead and draw something, a polygon there. Obviously from the name Polygonal Lasso tool, just telling you that you draw a polygon with this particular tool. I'm going to fill it with G this time around, just so that I repeat some of that knowledge for us and we can really digest that. Okay, so I'm going to hide that away again. Go back to our object. Okay, so magnetic lasso tool. Now this one, the way to use this, you click once and then you don't click again. So right now I'm not making any clicks. If you listen to the audio, you notice that I don't have that tapping on the, I'm not tapping on my but the problem is that now I can't get into a face now. That's the problem with this tool. It's difficult for me to get into a face. So I can only trace the outside of her. I think I can go this way. Maybe I can force it to go this way for me. Yeah, I think I can do that. So right now I'm not clicking it, I'm just moving. And this is the way to use the magnetic lasso tool. It's doing that selection for us. It's very interesting, really. It's doing that selection for us, and we go back to the beginning. There we go. And now Ctrl J again just to bring it out and see what we've done. It's not bad. It's not bad. Not at all. It's not bad. See? So you can just fine tune this, refine it, and see, that's not bad at all, right? So that's what the magnetic lasso tool does. And there's really no way for us to demonstrate the magnetic lasso tool because there's nothing for it to trace. Or maybe we can still do that, but that won't make a lot of sense with it. So I'm just going to remove that and move on to the next selection tool I want to show us. So the next selection tool is this. There's this object selection tool. I'm going to skip that one and come to quick selection tool, because this video might get long and I want to try and finish selections all in one video. And if this video is too fast, just play it in slower time. So to use the quick selection tool, it's like a brush really. You can use the bracket close to make it bigger and the bracket open to make it smaller, and that's what I'm doing with that. And then all you have to do is just click and drag. Make sure you see it's really fast. You can move quickly. So I'm just tapping right now, and yeah, those are some of the limitations. This is quick, right? Just as the name says, quick selection. So now let me just go back. Now I've got this selecting part of this water that I don't want and part of this water here that I don't want. The way to remove that is, right now, let's just come to this off canvas and demonstrate what I want to say. Right now I've got the plus sign in the middle of that brush there. If I hold Alt on my keyboard on the Windows and on Mac, that will be Option. If I hold Alt, notice how we get that as minus, and that's how you remove this part and make it snap more to the body of this lady here. So holding Alt here, I'm gonna click that, I'm gonna hold Alt again, click that, and click that. So good. Now I think I'm gonna hold Alt one more time here and just remove something from there. Alright, so I can Ctrl J again and I get that. It's pretty close to what we had when we use the magnetic lasso tool. So I think the choice is yours which you want to use. I think the magnetic lasso tool might be more perfect in terms of detecting edges. Okay, so that's what you do with that. A way I use the quick selection tool again is to just do this, but I guess I could just use magnetic lasso tool for that. I mean elliptical marquee tool for that. I could just make a selection this way. Sorry, okay, no, it's not doing what I wanted it to do. I think I can only make that selection if I had a different object there already. So that's fine. Let's just remove that layer and move on. Alright, so that's then the magic wand. This is a popular tool. I think this is one of the first selection tools that came with Photoshop. So as early as maybe Photoshop, I know it's on CS5 already, but even earlier than that we can get this. So now I just want to select this guy. I can't use a lasso tool to make this selection. Of course I could do it, but that would be like just bringing a knife to a gun game, and I really don't want to do that. So but you see here where the colors seem a little more uniform, now I can use a lasso tool, I mean a magic wand for that area. And that's what you use magic wand for mostly. When you have a uniform background, then you can use your magic wand to quickly make that selection, maybe remove it or something. So let's do that right now. See, I got all of that. Now say I wanted to add more of this region. I'm gonna hold Shift on my keyboard and you see that plus. Let me just come here to the off canvas. See what we add there, just the two, the magic wand. If I add a Shift, I'm gonna get that plus. If I hold Alt, I'm gonna get that minus. So right now I want to add this region. I'm gonna hold Shift and just add that in, and I'm gonna hold Shift again and add that cloud again, Shift to add that in. So now I can now come here. First of all, to move on, I'm gonna have to rasterize this layer. But let me just show you what happens. Now, there are two ways I could remove what I have, remove that sky. I could do this, inverse it. I could inverse that selection by coming to select, inverse, which means now I'm going to select the lady and the water, and then I can come to mask here, and that's going to remove that sky for me, and I can go ahead and replace that sky. But that I'm going to show when we're doing photo manipulation, not right now. So that's one way to remove that. Now let's disable that and undo a little bit. Okay, let's just undo a little bit. So that's one way to do that, and let's undo the inverse too. Another way to do it is to maybe fill it with a different color you wanna, or just bring in a different. Okay, that's gonna be very complex for now, so let's keep it simple. So I'm just gonna rasterize this layer, and then if I wanted this gone completely, because now I rasterized the layer, I can just backspace on my keyboard, and that's gonna remove that too. So I think before I move on, while I still have the layer, hold on, let's remove that selection. Let's do a Ctrl J. So let's just have a copy of this to use. Okay, so we have that copy, and let's use our magnetic one again. I'm gonna hold that shift to do that, hold that shift to do that, and hold that shift to bring in the cloud. Let's rasterize that layer. Now let me show us, if we didn't rasterize the layer and we try to do backspace, we're gonna get this: could not complete your request because the smart object is not directly editable, and that's the truth. So that's why we needed to rasterize this layer, because right now this is smart object. So rasterize the layer, so we'll flatten it. In another word, we could say we'll flatten it. So now backspace, and that's going to remove that. Awesome. So let's just hide that and bring back our original layer. So now we've gone through all of this. There's this object selection. Hold on. Now I'm going to draw this again. I think I need to hold shift to add it in. Okay. Let's add his head. I mean the head. Our head now. Good. Let's add this portion. Good. Let's add this portion. I'm just holding shift now, and I'm letting Photoshop do it automatically. Oh wow, I lost all that. Okay, hold shift. I just want to add this portion of her head. No, that's not the way I want to add it. Let's do it this way. Let's just do it this way. Let's do it this way. Okay, so this is pretty slow for me, and I don't use it per se, so that's why I didn't even want to discuss it before. Alright, so we've now gone through all the basic selection tools and that. Good. Now let's look at how to do selections with the pen tool. So basically we select our pen tool. To do that, you need to kind of zoom into your object so you get in the object a little more. So I'm just going to select a face here, and I'm not going to make this perfect. There we go. There we go. I'm going to hold Alt to connect that. If you watch the pen tool tutorial, you know everything I'm doing, so it won't come as a surprise. But if you skip that tutorial, you probably want to go watch that one before you come to this one, because I'm not going to explain how I'm using the pen tool here. I'm just going to do it. Okay, so quickly, just going to move up. We want just a face, so let's just get that earring in it. Now let's get a cheekbone in there. I think I lost the thing there, so that's fine. So one thing you want to do is to stay in the object. So let's just give a different smile like that. Okay, you know what, let's connect it because I think that's not giving me what I want. Okay. Okay. Of course, that's not gonna be perfect anymore because I took a portion of her arm away, which also meant I needed to forego a portion of her hair there. So I'm trying to go as far as I could here because I don't want this making the video really long. But when you're doing this in your own time, you want to make this as perfect as you can. Again, what I'm doing here I've explained in that video, so if you don't know what I'm doing, you want to go back and watch that video again, that's fine. So now when you have all this selection and you've completed your part, you can see I have part here. You want to right click and come into make selection, leave everything as it is, and get okay. So now we can do that Ctrl J again. See what we have right there. Our face not very perfect, but that's fine. Okay, so that's how you make a selection with the pen tool, and it's not necessarily in a picture. You can do it from on anything, but with a pen tool you probably gonna be working on a picture most time, so that's fine. Now let's talk about already I've shown you deselect, inverse, and probably what I've not shown you is reselect. Let's say Ctrl Shift D. I don't think we're gonna get that now, so let's just go back to our move to. Okay, hold on. Okay, moving on to, let's come here to select. So we'll look at this ones. We can select all layers this way. So that's not really talking about selection anymore. So let's go to the one that concerns selection. Let's select this layer, and we can select a color range. So we can come here and just select all this way. Just the best one that gives us a face, or we can select this blue just for the sky there. And just to show us what we're selecting, see that a region is going to be selected. So let me just deselect that, or we could come here to reselect. So that's how you do that. Again, color range. And something that I do this sometimes, and here's what I use it for. Said I have selected the color range and can come here, create a new layer, and just fill this selection with that brown that I have now, and undo that, and I can hide this, and I'm gonna get that outline of so that's something I do with color range. Then let's just wait for that to load up. Yeah, I think that's trying to draw my system resource a little bit. So good. We can just bring that back a little bit because we're losing the and here. Oh wow, no, sorry. Okay, so this is another way to quickly remove all the areas of a uniform color. I think we lost a bit of an and there, so we can move forward a little bit just to get that some of that back, maybe a little bit just to get an and back. We're trying to get the and back there. Notice this region, we're trying to get it back. Moving a little bit. Oh wow, too much now. Go back a bit. Okay, so that part of our hand is literally wide. That's why we're losing that. Okay, so you see what we can do with focus area there. Alright, I probably didn't dive deep enough into that to show all the other things we can do, but here's something I'd like to do. Okay, here's a way I can make a selection of a face without starting it over. Now look at this layer where I have this selection already. I can use that to make a selection on another layer. Here's how to do that. I can hold Ctrl on my keyboard and then I click into that layer, right, like that. And then I'm gonna have that a face, but I really want to work on this layer there. So that's a way to select a layer using another layer. Let me just explain that without the images and everything. Okay, so let's create two layers. Say I add this layer and I have this fill in it. Let me just return this back to that blue, my brown blue, the TLC, that brown blue, and say I add another layer where I put an elliptical marquee like so, and I fill it with that foreground color. Good. Now say I wanted to make a selection of this exact circle, but I wanted to make that selection on the yellow layer. What I can do, if I come here and I do that, I'm just going to select that whole layer. What I can do here is select that blue, but then I come here to the yellow layer and probably do Ctrl J or something. I can hide this and I can move that up, and you see we have that selection. So that's the way you can make a selection of another layer using a layer above or below it. It doesn't matter where the layer is, just select that layer, then go to the layer you want to carve out that shape from, and just carve that out or do whatever you want to do with it. Okay, so that's that. So basically that's also how you make a selection of a layer, like so. So let me just run through this. So if I wanted to make a selection of this layer, if I wanted to make the selection of that organic shape, I'll just hold Ctrl and click into that box, and that's how we do that. Okay, so yeah, I think that concludes our run through of selections in Photoshop. I probably maybe skip one or two. Okay, there's something I want to just show us before we go. Okay, so I have this selection, I have this. Good. Say I selected this, right, and I wanted to create another object of this exact shape, but I want it bigger. I can come here to selection, modify, or I could just go to grow. But let's go to expand, and I can expand, say, by 10, like that, and that's going to expand that for me. That's probably too small and you can't notice that very well. I could go to expand, let's expand by 50. There we go. Now I can create a new layer and probably fill it with yellow or so, like that. Deselect that and move that layer up. So now I've created that yellow layer from that blue layer. That's what's happened there. Let me use another of these layers to explain the reverse of that. So let's say I add this box. I mean, this is not a box, obviously, this is a rectangle. Say I add this rectangle and I wanted to create a smaller rectangle but with a similar dimension, right? A similar proportion. So the same thing I can do. First, I make a selection of that. I hold Control and I click into that box. That gives me a selection of that. I come to select, modify, and then I can come to contract. And again, let's contract by 50. Awesome. Let's create a new layer up there, and let's fill that with the blue. And there we go. Now I've created a layer out of the previous layer just by doing that. So that's how you can grow a selection. I mean, how you can expand the selection or contract a selection. Come to selections. Of course, you have to have a selection before this is activated for you. So there we go. Alright, so I think that's the basics of making selection in Photoshop. And when we begin to apply, we're going to look at some of these things and we use them, and by the time we use them, now you know, okay, you're familiar with that, so that's good. So thanks for watching this video, and the next thing we're going to do is a little project that helps us to apply this knowledge, and then we'll move to the next section of the course. Thank you.